Welcome to hour number 3 live right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie. I am Ben. Our third and final hour with you up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. There is some more football to dive into and a ton of basketball to preview on this Wednesday as well. Double-digit amount of games in the NBA. That's 10 tonight around the association. A marquee Wednesday in college basketball. And that's the flames of the stove starting to pick up. Hot stove in the offseason in Major League Baseball with some big news in Baltimore for the Orioles as well. The O's under new ownership. That seems to be very, very likely. But we start with another component of Baltimore. That is Lamar Jackson. Donnie, to end out our second hour, we asked the people, 2 regular season MVP award winners, Lamar Jackson in the National Football League for the Ravens, Joel Embiid in the NBA for the Philadelphia 76ers, but both guys have failed on the highest stages of ultimately gaining postseason success. So which of those 2 superstars is going to win a championship first? We asked the public, and we added in an option of neither. Neither of those 2 guys are ever going to win anything of consequence in their respective leagues. And that is what the public liked more than either JoJo or Lamar. 52% of the vote saying neither will ever win a championship.
And if we base this vote on, let's just say they have to be the superstar player of their team, I don't think either one of them is going to actually do that here, which means Joel Embiid with the Philadelphia 76ers and Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. Longevity and chances that you get, probably more chances that Lamar Jackson would have a chance to win a Super Bowl because he's going to have a good regular season team and possibly get the 1, 2, or 3 seed, and it's only a 1 game off in the playoffs, as we know. Not like the Philadelphia 76ers who have to go 7 games through, and Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers don't like to get past the second round in the playoffs. But hear me out the way we're going to break this down. If we take a look and say who's going to win a championship first as the lead dog, again, I don't think either one of them are going to actually do that. Better chance might be Lamar Jackson, but I do believe Joel Embiid is going to win a ring in the NBA because we've seen it so many times. Superstar unhappy in his city, still in his prime, forcing a trade. Not to get to San Antonio, but to get to a team that's on the cusp of a championship, and you probably get back 10 cents on the dollar for Joel Embiid. Number 2, let's just say things don't work out well for Joel Embiid, and he's in his early 30s, mid-30s. Another team on an NBA championship is looking to make a run. You can glom onto that team, and you can add 10 to 15 minutes a game as a center defensive or some instant scoring here. So for my money, as superstars of the respected franchises, I don't think they win a championship. But Joel Embiid, the way the NBA works, can force his way out and or when his contract's up in Philadelphia, go to any team he wants and ring chase. Because, oh, by the way,
listen,
Lamar
they've
Jackson,
been out there.
He can't.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
he can't ring chase Lamar Jackson, right? I'm going to go be a backup quarterback for the 49ers. Stop it. That's not going to happen.
Right.
Joel Embiid can ring chase, and that's how he's going to get it.
And listen, that would be a caveat in the question and a loophole. They've been out there, though. They've been waiting. They're like, what are these guys talking about? Lamar Jackson and Joel Embiid in the same conversation. That's the SportsGrid radio audience. We welcome you here to hour number 3, live on the early line on this Wednesday. Sirius XM Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. I also voted for Joel Embiid. Not only do I think the 76ers might have an easier path to an NBA championship, just given the structure of the NBA and how things work, I also just think that Embiid has those opportunities elsewhere if that's what needs to happen at some point in his NBA career. I also think the window, the longevity more than likely for Embiid is probably a little bit higher. That's nothing against Lamar Jackson, but we have said so many times how difficult the AFC is going to be. And right now the Sixers are looking up at the Bucks and the Celtics, 2 difficult teams to get past if they even want to win an Eastern Conference championship, let alone an NBA championship. But I think Joel Embiid has the opportunity to do that and can influence things a little bit more from his overall position than Lamar Jackson's. The AFC is going to be a gauntlet each and every year. Even if the Ravens have one of the 3 best conference championship prices for the next 5 seasons with Lamar Jackson as their starting quarterback, it is not going to be a walk to the conference championship. You are going to have to get past Patrick Mahomes. You are going to have to get past Joe Burrow in your own division. Josh Allen will be lurking out there. Could Justin Herbert do anything? Aaron Rodgers is still there entering next season. Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins. C.J. Stroud has built up the Houston Texans once again. What about the other teams in the AFC South, led by Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars? I don't believe in Deshaun Watson in the AFC North, but it's never easy in the AFC North, where even if the Pittsburgh Steelers are at the bottom, they're not going to be a 6-11 football team based on the 17-year history in Mike Tomlin's tenure. It is so difficult in the AFC. I don't think it's as hard of a path in the Eastern Conference. So if I had to select an individual between Joel Embiid and Lamar Jackson, I would go with JoJo.
Yeah, and the tough part about that, too, is like Lamar Jackson did get injured, as we saw last year. How injured was it a contract? I'm going to show you I don't want to play. We'll find out later. Now, granted, in the NFL, you're probably much more likely to get injured than you are in the NBA, but that's not really the case with Joel Embiid. Every single year, is it going to be his back? Is it going to be his knees? Is it going to be his face? What's getting injured on Joel Embiid? And as you get older, those things, specifically for a big man, don't actually wind up in your favor. If you're going to be a guard, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", you don't take the pounding that a big man at around 7 feet does in the low block and just crashing down to the floor like Joel Embiid likes to do. They're both in their prime. They are both unbelievable specimens right now, but winning a championship, it's a great question to ask because right now they're both at their low point, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely so. And there are the regular season accolades that both of these guys have put up. Joel Embiid won the NBA MVP award a season ago before the injury last night in San Francisco, before the idea of the 65-game minimum. He was that NBA MVP frontrunner this year as well. Lamar Jackson is about to win his second NFL MVP award in the last 5 years. But both guys will be remembered in most part for what they do in the playoffs. It is not nearly that much scrutiny in the NBA as it is in the NFL, tied to a quarterback position. What is the first thing that anybody says around Dan Marino? Well, he never won a Super Bowl. What is the first thing people bring up when they refer to Joe Montana? The fact that he continued to win Lombardi trophies. Tom Brady is known as the greatest of all time because of the 7 Super Bowl rings that he has. Nobody points to his 2018 season that he led the league with over 5,000 yards. I don't know if it was 2018. I'm just referencing that. Stats only matter to a certain degree at the highest level of your respective sport. You are often defined by championships, fair or unfair, for your impact in either the NBA or the NFL. Now time to go from Baltimore in the National Football League to Baltimore in MLB. The Orioles under new ownership next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but he's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the RAC. And it was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you can talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit, going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
It is the final day in the month of January. The winter is the offseason in Major League Baseball, but you bet your bottom dollar, maybe billions of dollars if you are in Baltimore at the moment, that we have some MLB news for you on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. The man in the middle is our MLB insider and the host of Newswire, which starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That is Craig Mish. Craig, a ton to dive into here around Major League Baseball on this Wednesday. The hot stove is picking up, but it's even hotter in Baltimore to the tune of $1.725 billion as John Angelos and the Angelos family is reportedly selling the Baltimore Orioles. Craig, when we have news, let's not bury the lead. What was your reaction to this big blockbuster out of MLB yesterday?
Yeah, I had heard rumors of this a couple of weeks ago, so it didn't really catch me by surprise. I guess the sales figure is one that's a little bit staggering, and it does show you that's when the owners in Major League Baseball are able to significantly make money. Listen, you can talk about how much they're making during the season on the TV deals and things of that nature based on ticket sales. None of the owners really open up the books, so you really don't know. But here's what we know is once the team is sold, that's when all the money comes in. So all the owners of baseball who own their team, once they sell, that's when you can expect it. And it's not tangible, I guess, at the time. It's just under the assumption that eventually you're going to get that 1.2, 1.3. And in this case, it'll be the highest ever at 1.75. But guys, we can get into it here a little bit on the Orioles' point of view, because there's going to be some speculation as to how they're going to proceed forward, without a doubt.
Yeah, it would be fun to watch it play out. And I guess from an Oriole fan perspective, it's got to be a great day there in the Delmarva Peninsula to say, finally, we get this ownership group out. Let's spend some money. Let's get back to the top of the standings in the AL, which they did do that last year. So good times ahead for the Orioles and certainly for the fan base. They really have to be liking that. But let's take a look today, Craig. As I look at the date, 1/31/2024. Tomorrow is February. That means 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers. We've been waiting for the market movement here to tilt here on the free agent signing, because as you stated, there are hundreds of players out there that probably still needed to be signed to the respective ball clubs here. But we finally get some movement. Justin Turner with the Blue Jays here. Do you like that move, number one? And number two, when is that explosion of left and right? We can't keep up with how many players are being signed back to their baseball clubs.
I mean, Donnie, I don't know the answer to that. It's look, we had these lines of demarcation for the last month. It's Ohtani, it's Yamamoto, it's January, it's the Super Bowl, it's this. Nobody knows the answer to it at this point. We're kind of all guessing. And we saw a couple of years ago this go deep into spring training and almost up until the season in March. I mean, look, could that happen? Is that in the plans? It's certainly possible at this point. It's not something that anybody wants to happen, but there's just simply too many players that are out there to think that all of these players can get signed in the next couple of weeks. And at this point, I also don't look, it's annoying the fact that some of Scott Boris's key guys are still unsigned, but for me to hold him like completely accountable for all of this when there are so many other players that are still out there, that feels sort of silly too. Like this domino effect. We just keep going back to this domino effect. The domino effect never happened in the offseason for baseball with any of these guys that have signed. As far as Turner is concerned, I would have preferred they signed Soler. We talked about that last week. I thought Soler was the perfect fit for them. Maybe he still is. I don't think the Blue Jays can be done at this point, and they kind of put themselves out there in a position where it looked like they were willing to invest between $600 and $700 million in Shohei Ohtani. So certainly they can get a lot more than Justin Turner if they wanted to. You would think their payroll could go up to 250, 260 if they needed to do that. But so face value, Turner's going to deliver offense. He always does wherever he goes. He probably can play till he's 45. He did it in Boston. He did it in LA. He'll do it in Toronto, Donnie, this year too.
So I'm not done with the Baltimore Orioles. Bad job on my co-host moving forward. We have so much to talk about with the O's because, Craig, when you see who the Orioles are going to be sold to, led by David Rubenstein, private equity billionaires. That sounds a lot like Uncle Steve's music. Steve Cohen, of course, the ownership of the New York Mets and all of the money that has been invested. Has it resulted in postseason success? Not necessarily here for the Amazons. Might it for the Baltimore Orioles, who were the number one seed in the American League a year ago. They won the American League East. They have not won an American League pennant in more than 40 years. And Craig, when you look at the Orioles up and down the roster right now, probably the most talented young core in all of baseball. What does it mean for roster retention in keeping the young superstars in Baltimore?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it because I think that there really isn't anything tangible that we know, Ben, say 2-3 years from now. We don't know how they're going to operate. We don't know how any ownership group is ever going to operate. Some come in, immediately spend, some go the other way. We can't really guess on that. But this is the most fascinating part of the sale of the Orioles right now. It's been a long time since the Angelos family has seen sustained success. If you want to count last year as it, I think that that's perfectly fair. The Orioles had a good year. So, Ben, on the way out, what do they decide to do right now? I think that is the question. Now, Mike Elias, as the general manager of the Baltimore Orioles, to me, he's one of the sharpest in the game. And it sort of would go against everything that he's done, building this entire farm system to just unload all these players and go for it this year by making trades. Because financially speaking, I don't see all of a sudden them bringing in, $200 million players. That right now I don't see. But as we look at the odds for the Orioles, and we kind of wonder about what this year, do they want to go out as high as they can? Do they want to go out? And now the Angelos family called Mike Elias, hey, let's win. We want to go out a winner this year as much as we possibly can. If that is the case, then the Orioles would be supremely undervalued right now. There are still some starting pitchers that are out there on the market. Do they now pull the trigger and make those trades, trade those prospects, and send that family out with a potential American League championship at the end of the season? It would go against the way that they have built this with the Orioles. But again, the general manager doesn't own the team. He doesn't make the final decision. Those are made by the owner. And I wonder which way this is going to go. It could just proceed as normal, guys, and nothing happens. And they just go about their business. The season starts. They sign a one-year contract to some pitcher, and they just keep doing what they're doing and grinding it out. Or are we getting ready for some massive moves from the Orioles to make that push for the Angelos family this year? I guess we'll find out.
It'll be fun. Push the Yankees, push Toronto, and of course, Major League Baseball has to love it, particularly Scott Boras, billionaires coming in. Let's lift every salary up here as high as we can get to. Now, we did see from New York City with Steve Cohen come in. I'm going to buy myself a World Series. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it. Absolutely cratered that franchise where now they're taking 2 and 3 steps back in order to maybe buy some free agents in the future once they feel that they can compete on that level. Let's have some fun here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, though. Coming up shortly, we are going to get some baseball that you can watch on our TV, which means managers of the year. The odds are out at the FanDuel Sportsbook. American League, the favorite, A.J. Hinch. In the National League, it's Craig Counsell. But how about this here, Craig? I don't see any managers from the Atlanta Braves. I don't see any managers from the Dodgers here. Do we automatically throw the good teams out right away when we try to line up our odds here? It's like, you know what? They're going to be good. And if the manager's good, they win a World Series. He didn't do anything or have his hand in that.
Yeah, I think, Donnie, usually the manager of the year, generally speaking, when it's between two managers, the one that's expected to win and the one that's not, usually the one that's not ends up winning. And that really speaks to last year. The National League Manager of the Year was Skip Schumacher. Nobody had that at the beginning of the season. So what's interesting about the names that you see there? Take a look at the American League. Who is that second name? Matt Quartaro? I think there's probably a lot of people watching, guys, that have no idea who Matt Quartaro is or what team he even manages. He's the manager of the Kansas City Royals. So look, maybe the Royals going out, spending a little bit, puts them slightly above 500. Marlins slightly above 500 last year. It does make some sense. The one that I like of all the ones that you showed is David Bell from the Cincinnati Reds. He was pretty close last year. The Reds are definitely going to take a big step forward in that division. You could make the case they win the division with a little bit of help. So that's the one that does stick out to me.
Craig Mish, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. We're back with some college basketball handicaps next.
Introducing Sports Injury Central's new feature, The Injury Edge, your NFL matchup cheat sheet. See all the significant injury mismatches broken down by offense and defense to highlight where the advantages lie. All for only $2.99 a week. How can you even consider making a bet or setting your fantasy lineup without knowing the injury mismatches? Go to sixscore.com today and get this week's Injury Edge.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45. But I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knick fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great, didn't play deep, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Turning it back in the fold. Let's enter the zone in college basketball. A huge night on this Wednesday around the country in CBB. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. The number 1 team in the country plays tonight. The number 2 team in the country plays tonight. We saw the number 3 team in the country, North Carolina, on the road yesterday have their 10-game win streak snapped and suffered their first ACC loss of the year. Connecticut is that number 1 team in all the land. They lost their first Big East game of this season, suffering a defeat to Seton Hall. Since that point, Donnie, UConn has not lost. They've won 8 straight games. They have covered in 5 of the 8. And tonight at home in Stores, they're a 13.5-point favorite against Providence. Will the win streak continue to 9 for Dan Hurley's Huskies?
It should continue tonight. But by the way, taking a look at Providence, the way they've gone through their Big East schedule here, right? Losing to Seton Hall, Creighton, St. John's, and Xavier all in a row. That was January 3rd up to January 13th. So a terrible 2-week stretch. But much better here coming out of that 4 losses here. You've beaten DePaul, which is a bad basketball team, but you didn't beat them, Ben, 71-70. You beat them 100-62, laying waste to them. Seton Hall is a decent basketball club here, going through a little bit of, challenges there with their starting lineup. You beat them by 4 points. And Georgetown as well. Not a great team, 84-76. But now you're going on the road to take on Connecticut, who clearly is the best team overall here in the Big East. If we're lining this game up, what does Connecticut do well? Just about everything. Forget about the defensive side of the basketball. You look at the offense, number 1 in Big East play in efficiency, number 1 in effective field goal percentage, which also includes a team that does have a couple bigs down low that shoots league best, 40% from 3-point range in conference play. Connecticut's going to win this basketball game, but you know what? I'd probably lean on Providence taking the points here. You don't need style points for UConn. You're number 1 in the country. You win in the advance. And I do like the fact that you did have those 4 straight losses from Providence. Now you have 3 straight wins. Coming in with a little bit of, let's see if we can take on the UConn Huskies in this game.
UConn riding high following a win on Sunday by 43 points against Xavier. They absolutely hammered the Musketeers. Providence feeling pretty good. It was an emotional day at the Amica Mutual Pavilion in Providence, Rhode Island. Amica, I guess is how you pronounce that. Anyway, in Providence, Rhode Island, it was the return of the native son, Ed Cooley, now is the head coach of Georgetown against the Friars on Saturday. A 10.5-point number, a tightly contested game. Providence gets the victory, 84-76. The Friars now have won 3 straight games. They lost 4 in a row, Donnie, after their big man, Bryce Hopkins, in the middle, was out for the remainder of this season, a torn ACL. Devin Carter, though, has picked up the slack. He is leading the way for PC, who is an underdog for the 7th time so far this season in their previous 6, much like South Carolina last night. Not many at the high major level, better at covering numbers than Providence. 5-1 against the spread, 3 outright victories, a dog 4 times for the Friars in Big East play, and they have covered the number each and every time. Northwestern at home, they're really good. Northwestern on the road against a ranked opponent, you can see the change in philosophy. A 13.5-point spread as well for the number 2 team in the country in a Big Ten battle tonight inside Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. Purdue, a 13.5-point favorite against the Wildcats. The over-under, 140.5. The Boilers have revenge on their minds, Donnie, in their Big Ten opener, the opening Friday of December. They went to Evanston as the number 1 team in the country and lost outright against the Cats. But you can see what happens then when they return to Mackey, a 13.5-point number in their favor.
In the previous game we just talked about with UConn, right? You're trying to take a look at Providence. How can they upset the apple cart here? Well, Providence gets to the free throw line, and certainly UConn loves to foul. That helps you out. You know who likes to shoot a lot of 3-point shots in that previous game? It's going to be Providence here, that ultimate equalizer. The reason I bring that up is you try to focus here on Purdue. And what don't you want to do here? Purdue is number 1 in conference play in the Big Ten, then, at getting to the free throw line. And we talked about Zach Edey being a big man that can actually make free throws here. You know who's the worst team at fouling in the Big Ten? It's Northwestern. That's a terrible matchup right off the bat. But also, everything starts and revolves around Zach Edey down in the low post. which means on the defensive side and offensive side, they're a great rebounding basketball team, Purdue. You know who's terrible at rebounding the basketball on defense? It's Northwestern here. So things are lining up, not looking great off the bat, saying, okay, we can't combat the big man. We're going to send him to the free throw line. And, oh, yeah, when there's shots to be had here that we can get defensive rebounds and push tempo, we're not going to be able to do that because we're not a great rebounding team. So just lining those two things up, I think, makes a big deal here where Purdue should be able to score. Also, keep in mind, 3-point shot here. The shot attempts to field goal attempts here just based on 2s and 3s. Purdue loves to shoot the 3. So a lot of things lining up where number 12 in conference play defending the 3-point line, it's Northwestern. It really checks out that Purdue going to be angry. And don't get me wrong, they're going to have the attention of Northwestern with that upset. They're going to look for a beatdown. Still a lot of points here, but a lot of things favor Purdue in this game for me, Ben.
If I was looking at points, I would expect to see a ton over 140.5. Purdue over in 14 of 21 games this year, 5 of their last 7. Now, the first game between these two went to overtime, 92-88, the final in Evanston. But a pregame number of 135 was way over in regulation, even as it stood. I think there will be some pace tonight, and I think the Boilermakers are going to score. A huge game for Purdue to not look ahead. And I don't think the revenge spot presents that opportunity of a trap spot by any means. We have said this a few times. There are 4 top 10 ranked matchups this weekend in college basketball. 5 ranked versus ranked games, 4 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. It's in Madison, inside the Kohl Center, a game that could already dictate the outcome of the Big Ten. Purdue on the road, the number 2 team in the country against the 6th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers. You can't look forward, take care of business tonight. But Donnie Rightside and I, brunch at the book on Sunday in Las Vegas. We'll be fired up for that one. To Lexington we go, another top 10 team in action tonight. Kentucky, a 5.5-point favorite against Florida. You don't often see a 170 for an over-under in college basketball. Are we going to see that much offense tonight at Rupp?
Yeah, it's hard to say yes because a lot of things have to go right. But when you take a look at the matchup, a lot of things probably should go right here. Number one, we're talking about Kentucky's defensive pressure. There's 14 teams in the SEC. Turning it over, they're 12th. Flip it over to Florida. 14 teams in the SEC. Turning it over, they're 14th Florida, which means the offenses should have really good looks left and right out there, not turning the basketball over every other possession at this point. If you also take a look at Kentucky on offense, average length of possession in conference play. Again, 14 teams in the SEC, they're number 2 at getting their shots up. But take a look at the Florida defense. Number 2 at letting you get those shots up quickly here and not extending here on defense. A little bit different matchups on Florida offense against Kentucky's defense, but just going down that list here, if we're not turning the basketball over against 2 teams that are pretty good on offense, number 2 in efficiency in conference play, it's Florida. Number 4 in efficiency on offense, it's Kentucky here. I don't love the matchup per se, but I do like the fact that Kentucky bounced back after getting hammered by South Carolina, where maybe at the time we were saying to ourselves, well, boy, that's a terrible loss by them. Is it really? With how good South Carolina has actually been in the SEC? Right. Kentucky's at home. I'll lean that way. No real feel, but that number is extremely high at 171. I mean, that's crazy.
Kentucky went under in their first 2 games of the year. They then respond by going over in 12 of their next 13. They've now gone under in 2 straight. The numbers are getting a little bit steep. Now, the first time these 2 teams played in Gainesville just about a month ago, Kentucky won outright as a short underdog in the Swamp. A total of 170.5 went over 87-85. We can see why we expect to see in the upper 160s, in the low 170s. That's just a little bit high. Florida 7 SEC games, 4 under, 3 over. Their most recent game against Georgia, 102-98. You understand why the number is there. It might just be a little bit too steep. Next up, it is Alabama and Georgia. The Tide on the road against the Bulldogs tonight. And when you look at the number right now, Donnie, this is one of those interesting spots where you have the ranked team favored on the road against an unranked foe. 6.5 points in favor of the Crimson Tide, but the juice is with UGA. Would you lay the 6.5 with the Crimson Tide tonight in Athens?
I don't know if I lay the 6.5, but again, an extremely high number, Bennett. 164.5 is the total in this game. But you take a look at Alabama, the number one most efficient team in SEC play, which also means that they drain three-point shots. Number one in the conference at about 39%. Why is that important? They also shoot 50% of their shots from the field from three-point range. So if those shots are going in against a defense that's 10th out of 14 teams out of defending the three-point shot, we should get points here. But also keep in mind, here's what I like. Turnover percentage, which is crazy. How do you have the most efficient team in SEC play here also lead the league in turnovers, which is crazy? 21% of the possessions that Alabama is, they don't even wind up in a shot. It's a turnover, which means you could get some buckets going the other way in transition, as Georgia is third in conference play at forcing turnovers. Now, also, what Georgia has going for them, not a great offense, Ben, but he gets to the line more than any other ball club in the SEC. It's Georgia here. So I think we have a legitimate chance to get a great pace here, knock down some three-point shots, get some transition game here for Georgia going, and maybe find yourself with 165 points.
Yeah, I think so as well. Listen, there are 362 D1 men's college basketball teams. Alabama ranks 21st in terms of tempo. We showed you Florida and Kentucky both rank inside the top 20 as well. Baylor looking to stem the tide tonight. They started off a perfect 3-0 in Big 12 play. They have now lost 3 consecutive conference games. They're on the road. It's only a 2.5-point number in Orlando against UCF. That's a little bit fishy by my estimation. Now to the NBA. We go up next around the association. 10 games. We break down a few here next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but he's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the rack. It was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you can talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Wednesday. 10 games in the association, and the premier hardwood handicappers are with you. He is Donnie right side. I am Ben Stevens. For the second consecutive game in Oklahoma City, it is a marquee matchup in the Western Conference. On Monday night, it was the Thunder and the Timberwolves. At the time, both entered 32-14, tied for the number one spot in the Western Conference standings. OKC was a slight home favorite, laying 2.5 points. Minnesota won outright 107-101. The Timberwolves, the best record in the Western Conference, 33-14. The Thunder now the third best record in the Western Conference, 32-15, because the defending NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets, have played one more game. They have one more win. They are 33-15. It is as close as you could get to a pick'em on the money line tonight in Oklahoma City. The Thunder a slight favorite, Donnie, minus 112. Denver minus 104. Over-under stands at 227. Listen, it's a regular season game. It's the final night of January. We got a lot of basketball to worry about before we get to the middle of April and the playoffs begin in the NBA. But if you are Oklahoma City and you are Minnesota, and these are your opportunities to make a statement in a marquee matchup, this is a prime opportunity tonight in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, this is the time here, right? Because even the last game, we were taking a look at the OKC Thunder. Can they win that game? Rest disadvantage. I'll go against them. I thought Minnesota was the right play, and it was. But you just take a look at that number here. Slight favorite here towards Oklahoma City. They're at home going against the NBA champions. This is the time that's your time to shine, to say, you know what? Even though it's a regular season game, it doesn't mean all that much for the playoffs. Not necessarily. This is one that you put into the bank on. You know what? Remember that night OKC when they were rested, got a chance to take on Denver and showed us that they were a great ball club. I look for a big night from SGA, and yes, it's really hard to take the Denver Nuggets, or bet against, I should say, and fade the Denver Nuggets in a game like this, but I do think OKC is going to be fired up and treating this almost like an NBA Finals game. I like the Thunder to take care of business at SGA, of course, getting into the 30s here, Ben.
Listen, we're looking at numbers that are basically a pick'em, so trends in these spots, not really the biggest thing. Technically, the Nuggets at this moment would be an underdog for only the sixth time in their 49 NBA games this year. They have won 2 of the previous 5 outright when booked as an underdog. Oklahoma City, one of the better cover teams as a favorite, now 20-11 against the spread, but it'd be laying a point. It's minus 112 on that money line. So next up, we go to Kevin Durant making his return inside the Barclays Center against the Brooklyn Nets. His Phoenix Suns, a 3-point road favorite, the over-under 232. Phoenix playing much better basketball, but not really covering numbers. What do you expect out of the Nets, who in their most recent game, Donnie, earlier this week on Monday night, not only did Ben Simmons nearly have a triple-double in less than 20 minutes of action, the Nets blew out the Jazz by more than 30.
Look, yeah, this is going to be one that you're going to want to say, you know what, I want to take Kevin Durant here and let's let bygones be bygones. He's going to be angry. He's going to be in his old building. He's going to want to show them. But also, Ben, I would like to be seeing a better brand of basketball out of Kevin Durant lately, because we had a game stretch where he took on Indiana and also Chicago, dropped 40 and 43 consecutively. After that, 12, 20, 15, and 20. And also, we're not talking about Ben like, hey, well, he's coming off the bench and we're trying to limit his minutes here. 41 minutes, 37 minutes, 39, and 37. So tonight, if there's one game for Kevin Durant to turn up, he should do that tonight. But usually, you know me, Ben, ride the hot hand. Who's the guy scoring all the points here that's going to want to continue to roll? That's not Kevin Durant at this point right now. So maybe it's a Devin Booker night. And also, you are correct. Yeah. I like the Suns. Their big three is supposed to be intact for this basketball game. They're a better overall team than the Nets, but they're on the road and technically don't cover. I'll take the Nets tonight. Give me the points. By the way, every time it seems like the Nets have a home game and they're getting points, I'm saying give me the Nets and the points in the situation. And I'm going to do that again tonight.
13, 15, and 2 against the spread are the Brooklyn Nets. Donnie still has those allegiances to Ben Simmons, whether he wants to admit it to himself or not. The Phoenix Suns' most recent game on this East Coast road trip, they've been on the road now for 4 straight games, kind of to the eastern part of the country in Florida most recently. Devin Booker has been sensational. Their most recent game, though, for Phoenix was in South Florida on Monday against the Heat. They closed as a 2.5-point dog against the Heat team that has now lost 7 straight games. They won outright 118-105. But as a favorite, Phoenix 11, 21, and 2 against the spread. Not great at covering numbers. Phoenix has won 8 of its last 10, but they've only covered 4 times in that span. 2 of those 4 covers as the favorite. But Devin Booker, 46 points a week ago against the Mavericks on the road. 62 on Friday night. We have seen 4 60-plus point performances in the last week, and that has been sensational. Devin Booker follows it up on Sunday in Orlando with 44 points. I would look at Phoenix in this spot, but what I think I like even more, Donnie, the Suns have gone under in 5 of their last 7 games as they have started to play better basketball. I would lean under 232 tonight. Doc Rivers' debut on the sidelines for the Milwaukee Bucks was not the greatest thing on the road in Denver just a few nights ago. Tonight, the Bucks are in Portland. Damian Lillard's return against the Trailblazers, a 10.5-point spread in favor of the Bucks. Yesterday in Portland, at Adidas headquarters, they dedicated the court to Dame. Everybody excited to see him back in the Rose City. How do you think his return looks tonight against the Blazers?
Yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of shots here up tonight, and rightfully so. The crowd's going to want to see it. They're sure they're going to cheer him. They're not going to boo him here tonight. But also, every other game, Dame, which is his name for us, didn't play very well in his last game out there, had 18 points. Before that, he had 26. I'm not looking right now at the FanDuel Sportsbook, so somebody can chime in there. His points prop is one you're going to want to look at because the narrative does fit here. Much, much more than the game we just talked about with Kevin Durant saying, hey, he's going back to Brooklyn. I mean, how much invested time was really in Brooklyn for Kevin Durant as opposed to Dame Lillard, who basically was the Portland Trailblazers for the better parts of a decade here. I do think this game is going to be high scoring. I think the Milwaukee Bucks run away with this game, but also they're going to make sure Dame gets as many shots as he needs here. Can you imagine this? You go back to Portland here, you lose this basketball game, and Dame shoots 5 of 21 from the field. Absolutely not. Narrative stands. You should be lining up on Damian Lillard in this game.
Nope, not going to happen. 26.5 points is the prop for Dame. Donnie is spot on. Every other game, Dame. Is that what do you want to call him? What is it officially?
It's every other game, Dame. That's his new name. Yeah, not Dame
every
time.
Other
every
game,
other game,
Dame. Not Dame time anymore. Every other game, Dame. So to follow that from Donnie, 26.5 is the points prop. He scored 18 on Monday in Denver. The game before that, 26. So right around that number. The game before that, 22 against Cleveland. The game after that, 28 points against the Cavs, 17 against the Pistons, 45 in the game prior, 17 the game before that, 29 in the game prior. He has gone over in an 8-game span in 3 of the 4 other game Dames, and the one he went under was with 26. We go over 26.5 tonight. His 3 points prop is 3.5. The over has a lot of plus money at plus 138. The volume is there. Dame Lillard, Dame Lillard, Dame Lillard. And on top of that, minus 10.5 for this Milwaukee team. That, again, one of the reasons Adrian Griffin was let go, despite a 30-13 record, second best in the Eastern Conference, was how it looked. And we use that with the odds evaluation. A 16-26-1 against the spread team under Adrian Griffin. If you are going to look better and be thoroughly dominant under Doc Rivers, who now wants to get the sour taste of a loss in his first game as Milwaukee's head coach out of his mouth, I would lay a 10.5-point spread even on the road with Milwaukee. Very short number tonight in Miami. The Heat host the Sacramento Kings. Again, Miami in a tailspin at the moment. They have lost 7 straight games, a slight 1.5 favorite, minus 118 money line against Sacramento. The Kings, one of the better underdog teams in the NBA, 8-3 against the number. 5 of those 8 covers outright. Will it be 8 straight losses for Miami, or is Sacramento going to suffer a loss on the road?
I thought we had a perfect scenario last time I backed the Miami Heat at home. Terrible team coming in with a team that's already taken a loss coming in and also on a back-to-back, and that didn't work out for the Miami Heat. So I'm not going to buy into the Heat once again tonight here, Ben. Give me the Sacramento Kings on the road as the slight underdog, as they are begging you to take the Kings, and I am going to take the Kings tonight because I just don't see anything right now out of the Miami Heat that is a positive. Could they win tonight? Are they favored to win? Yes. But I bit into that apple before, and it didn't taste all that good here, Ben. So forget about that.
No.
Let's go ahead and take the Kings tonight.
The Sacramento Kings have won 4 straight games, technically the hottest team in the Western Conference, the longest active win streak at this moment. What is my favorite? PRA, Domantas Sabonis. I think this game is going to be competitive. Even if Miami does snap the 7-game skid and edges things out, I think Sabonis has a big game, 39.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, as we shared, a monumental road victory in OKC on Monday evening. Now the best record by themselves in the Western Conference, 33-14, half game up over Denver, full game advantage against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Tonight, Minnesota, a very hefty favorite at home in Minneapolis. Why, you might ask? Luka Doncic has been ruled out. We haven't seen Kyrie Irving in many games as well. 13-point spread now, slightly working back to Dallas, but still 13 points in favor of the T-Wolves.
Yeah, this should be a game where the Timberwolves hammer, but I always find myself interested in these situations on the opposite side because some of these guys, and yes, they're NBA players, want to get their chance to shine here. And also from a Minnesota Timberwolves perspective, you're human beings, right, Ben? You show up to the arena and go like, wait a second. Luka's out in this basketball game and Kyrie, this is going to be easy tonight. Let's go out there and handle our business. And they might win, but also don't be surprised for the Mavericks maybe to have a first or second quarter lead here. Give me the underdog play and contrarian look. The team without their superstars. I'll take them with the points tonight.
They have been really good, missing at least one superstar as an underdog. 9-12 against the spread for the Mavs this year as a dog. Minnesota favored in 43 games rather so far this year. 16, 17, and 2. I did the math poorly there. I'll figure out how many games that is. 35. I don't know what I was doing with some mental math there in that spot. But still 16, 17, and 2 against the number as the favored side. Wemby watch. The NBA Rookie of the Year is now minus 240 in his favor for that award. And yet San Antonio has been a 5-point home underdog against the Orlando Magic. When the Magic have been booked as a favorite, Donnie, they've been one of the best in the NBA. One of 3 teams with north of a 70% cover percentage as the favorite side, which includes the Spurs, by the way. It's only been 5 games, though, for San Antonio. Orlando 10-4 against the number when booked as a favorite.
Yeah, that line screams here. You got to take the Orlando Magic. Say, Wemby's at home. This is the chance they can finally rise up. When this team loses, they usually lose big. And if I think San Antonio is losing tonight, I'm certainly not betting them to cover the spread. Give me the Orlando Magic.
I want to look at one final spot, and I know it might sound crazy, but Detroit's been feeling good with Ben Johnson staying as the offensive coordinator, and the Detroit Pistons, who upset the Oklahoma City Thunder at home over the weekend, winning outright as a 12.5-point underdog, have now covered in 7 of their last 8 games. The Pistons, a 12.5-point dog tonight in Cleveland. The Cavs have been sensational. Winners of 9 of their last 10. But I'm just saying, maybe Detroit covers a 12.5-point number. A best bet on this Wednesday comes your way next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the rack. It was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you can talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here, closing out our 3 hours together on a Wednesday on the Early Line on SportsGrid. I am Ben. He is Donnie, and this is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app, available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. You scan that QR code right there on your screen. All of our information and insight available in the palm of your hand. That includes 5-star plays. Those are known as best bets, and so are these. Before we say farewell and goodbye, it is time for bye, bye, bye. Where are we headed to on this Wednesday for a best bet?
Pretty simple here. Like yesterday, had a nice bet with Kansas over the 8.5 team total. Came in late, took to the final minute, and probably would have missed out because the better bet might have been just to take the Kansas Jayhawks yesterday to win that game by margin, which they did. Tonight, I'll eventually go with the college basketball game, Ben, but just going over that NBA slate. The narrative is just too good. Like, if it's Kevin Durant back in for the Brooklyn Nets or playing in the Brooklyn Nets arena, all right, that's okay, lukewarm for me. But Dame going back home and have anything less than 35 points as his points prop here, I got to go over. The narrative is so unbelievable there that Dame is not going to be like, you know what, Giannis, on my big night returning back home, why don't you shoot 38 times here and I'll just watch you be the king of the court? That's not happening. It's going to be Dame time tonight. It was either going to be 3-point shots or points. I'm just going to go 26.5 to the over. That's got to get home for me, Ben.
Love the 3-point prop to the over as well with some plus money. Over 3.5 plus 138. Also, second game for Doc Rivers. They lost against the Denver Nuggets on Monday in his Milwaukee debut. I'd lay the 10.5 pretty simply with the Bucks, even on the road in Portland. I go college basketball. Pay attention to the Mountain West. Of course, San Diego State made the national championship game a season ago, but there's a lot of good teams out in the Mountain West this year, including New Mexico under Richard Pitino, the son of Rick. They play at a high tempo. They score a ton. They're averaging better than 91 points per game in a 5-game win streak. Over 150.5. Lobos, Broncos of Boise State tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, a Thursday on the Early Line.